Let us fall asleep, performatively, philosophically falling asleep. Sleeping in the ocean, sleeping hidden. The not perceivable exists in a performance mode of sleeping, in a special mode that cannot be grasped by our conscious mind and therefore demands a wider and even more consciously unreflective attention. In falling asleep, the distinctions between pleasure and pain, inside and outside, I and world dissolve. The subject falls into an undifferentiatedness in which it can no longer say itself as an I, just as little as one can say that one is dead. Falling asleep can be read as such a surface event. It is not a sinking into some depth of the unconscious, not a diving into a hidden ground, but a loss of occupation, a place without occupier or an occupier without place. Attention, intentionality and personal identity do not simply dissolve but glide out of their fixations. Falling asleep is thus not the negation of consciousness but a shift of its coordinates.
Seht ihr den Mond dort stehen? Er ist nur halb zu sehen und ist doch rund und schön. So sind wohl manche Sachen, die wir getrost belachen, weil unsere Augen sie nicht sehen.
From afar, a soft drumming. Something like steadiness begins to gather. Heavy hooves under which the ground gives way and reveals the sound of the stones. Feet that strike, in the focus of attention, circle around you, close you in, define you. Your gaze follows their sound beyond the horizon, along whose sharp edge they gallop. But how many are they? How many legs do they carry? 4, 6, 7, 8 roaring sticks, in whose pulse you seem to find pleasure. In the rhythm of their choreography, the focus of the surface shifts. Whoever follows here leaves the dominance of the material, the heaviness of things, the structure of a system, the determinacy of consequence. Your gaze, drawn by the vortex of thundering hooves, slips away.
Only where a mental representation detaches itself from the bodily shared performative image does spirit enter into itself. Meaning opens its own space, the sphere of the imaginary. But where mental representation arises, there must already have been performative representation. Only via the tremendous detour of the performative is the mental possible. Early humanity lives in hallucinatory image production procedures. The dream is their residue, the submerged hallucination that has sunk into the mental underground of waking consciousness. Everything hallucinatory that does not become waking image is banished from wakefulness into a non-waking, yet still mental state beneath waking consciousness. Every waking contouring of mental forms is a drawing of borders against this underground.
It is, as Michel Foucault formulates in his introduction, not actually about dream and existence, but about existence as it appears in dreaming and as it can be deciphered in the dream. Existence in that mode of being of dreaming in which it manifests itself as meaningful.
With Karen Barad, the scene shifts once again radically, almost like in a hypnagogic moment, in which the contours of the figures blur and another depth layer becomes visible. Her posthumanist performativity begins where the notion of a pre-given consciousness,
thus becomes
whether
a mode of
individual,
appearance of
collective,
existence
cosmic,
on the
or
surface of
earthly,
imagination,
itself becomes
a
problematic.
scene in which our being shows itself
Agency,
in the mode
Barad
of
writes,
dreaming,
is a matter
without
of
being reduced to a
interacting.
deeper,
It is an
linguistically
enactment,
graspable
not something that
ground.
someone or something has. Agency is not a possession, not a property of a subject, but an event in which what we
Before
later
there
call
was an
subject
individual psychic
and object
dreaming,
come
we
into
might
being
speak
in the
of a
first place.
pre-human,
There are no
non-individualized
finished
mode of
bears that
being.
then enter into
An
relation.
atmospheric
Related
field
do
If
not actually
imagination
exist
is
in
originally a
relation.
collective
They arise as
muscular
relata
movement,
within phenomena
a
in
loosened
concrete
drive
material.
movement that makes
experiential
core
variations
manageable
of the
through
world.
condensation, displacement, and inversion, then trance can be understood as a controlled return into that zone between performative and mental representation. In trance, understood not as an esoteric exception, but as an intentionally produced loosening of the waking contours of the eye, that space opens in which the collective dream level, the existential surface morphology of the dream, and our contemporary individual consciousness overlap.
The environment recedes, the body becomes weightless or forgotten. Images ebb away, and yet a quiet, wakeful presence persists, a heart of silence that pervades inside and outside at once. Deep sleep is treated here not only as a natural nocturnal phase, but as an experimentally accessible mode of consciousness. Deep sleep is not mere unconsciousness. It is the immersion of the mental and physical consciousness into the vastness of the transcendent existence. Transformation into the state of rest, as that moment when from one instant to the next, a heart of silence becomes present. It is precisely at this point that the break sets in, which in Malibu's thinking asserts itself almost like a counter-dream, a quasi-nightmare of the transcendental. Malibu describes destructive plasticity as that form of transformation that does not take shape by integrating itself into a history, but by interrupting every continuity. The negative possible that appears here is not mere lack or impossible, but the power or capacity of the negative, which neither asserts itself nor fails, but forms. There are events in which not consciousness as such is destroyed, but the very possibility of still asserting a continuous line from I was to I am. The vastness of transcendental deep sleep here meets another negative possible, an emptiness without return. Malibu describes this dimension as that which makes life impossible, a possible that does not point to virtuality, potentiality, or heart space, but to a form of destruction in which every subsequent mediation fails. In the future of Hegel, Malibu pursues this tension at the level of the concept. Plasticity there names the self-determination of the substance-subject structure that unfolds in time, to see what is coming, simultaneously in the mode of anticipation and of blindness toward the event. The dialectical process works through abbreviation. The immeasurable abbreviation of the multitudes of particular things reduces the fullness of appearances to points of determinacy. This formalizing reduction produces a hardness of determination, a rigidity that can appear like heartlessness, but at the same time gives the thus reduced content a new, characteristic singularity. Transferred to our sleep figures, this means, even our discourse on deep sleep, heart space, silence, is already such a process of abbreviation that presses the innumerable bodily nuances of the night into a few conceptual points. Upon awakening, time is folded back again. It coils once more around the continuously previous strand. One feels caught in the half-darkness of a knowledge that is never fully completed, as if a soft light only dimly touched the edge, while imagination floats like a fleeting shadow between worlds. It does not show the obvious. It withdraws, and yet at the same time reveals a truth that lies beyond what we can grasp, a truth that surpasses us, and yet comes alive in the secret images before our mind. Right into the specificity that was just there, that lets something of the images of thought be glimpsed, of the differences between these images, far removed from the unconscious as a collective space. The dim state passes through stations in order to arrive again. The scales on the eyes fall away in steps. Sleep and waking show that individuation proceeds in a transimmanent way. It does not descend from a transcendent form into matter, but unfolds along a plane where conditions and the conditioned continuously exchange places. To say that a sleeper wakes up is to say that a virtual seed, a pre-individual intensity, has passed through an environment that allows it to crystallize into a determinate configuration. Unfolding never consumes the whole virtual. A remainder always persists, a side that withdraws from actualization. In exchange with the given situation, the virtual seed forms an environment that brings it to crystallization. In Gilles Deleuze, concepts and plane are inseparable. One is not simply receptive, while the other creates. They stand in reciprocity and contiguity. Each awakening, each sleep, is a local modulation of the same plane, rather than the application of a rule from above.